The story of Two Blue Vortex has officially entered a very dark phase. While the possibility of Boruto being the bad guy in the flash forward is still debatable, the Shinobis, however, are now making their first steps towards sinfulness. In chapter 17, Shikamaru revealed the plan to kill the Shinjus, the newly born characters who solely rely on their instincts when taking action. The plan centered on using a friendly approach to win their trust and enter their good books, then strategically wait for the moment when they lower their guard down, just to strike when they least expect it. A full-fledged betrayal plan which seems to be the only way to eliminate these potential enemies. But here is how it gets interesting. Until now it was simply a clash between the Shinjus and Boruto, with their targets getting caught in the crossfire purely out of instinct. But with this plan of Shikamaru, the Shinjus will definitely start hating the Shinobis after they realize how their trust was broken. We may be witnessing the first small step of the story towards the end of Shinobi's plot, and by the end of this video, you will find out exactly how. First and foremost, Shikamaru explicitly mentioned that Naruto would have never approved of this plan cause it involves betrayal and breaking trust. But he is not Naruto, and that's why he is taking the logical route to solve the problem. Well, by this statement of the 8th Hokage, I think we are one step closer to understanding a major mystery from the flash forward. There is something ironic with Kawaki in this scene that I'm sure many of you must have noticed. As we know, he's a full-fledged Naruto worshipper, but at the same time, Naruto dedicated his life to upholding the shinobi system. So how in the world is Kawaki against the same system that his godfather safeguarded his entire life? You could argue that the shinobi system was flawed and it needed a reformation anyway, but Naruto was too conservative to do that, and that's why Kawaki did it. But the real deal that I got to know from the statement of Shikamaru tells a different story. Kawaki is against the heartless approach of shinobis when it comes to accomplishing different missions. The case of the Shinjus is just one small aspect. There's an entire iceberg of cruelty hidden behind this so-called traditional shinobi approach. All in all, I believe the plot is making us understand how Naruto's way of peacekeeping through love and compassion was the reason behind the light in the shinobi world. But now with this new Hokage, who is choosing brutality over anything to obtain a desired outcome, the shinobi system is destined to fall sooner or later. Well, another thing that I noticed in this chapter, which could also be associated with this destined fall of the shinobi age, comes from Jura and his curiosity to seek knowledge. While everyone was caught off guard by how the Shinju made money to buy books from Konoha, there is something about his drive to seek knowledge that I guess most of us are ignoring. And with this plan of Shikamaru to betray the Shinjus, all the puzzle pieces are now coming together. Basically, the Shinjus are fully aware Biju, who have awakened intellect and consciousness. They seem to operate similar to human beings if we ignore their devouring instinct, but this sudden emergence into a strange world has made them develop like newborn babies. It took no time for Ryu and Masuri to show trust in Konohamaru and the others. There was no sign of suspicion on their face, just like how a small child would easily believe a stranger. Shikamaru wants to take advantage of this vulnerability just to destroy them before they destroy anything. But at the same time, it's the most cruel approach that one could think of. The Shinju seem to have no idea about the possibility of betrayal upon trusting someone, and maybe that's why Jura is spending so much time to study the laws of this world that he has been born in. He could sooner or later figure out the ill will of the shinobis, even though the Shinjus haven't caused any direct harm to them, and this would turn into a very good reason for the living god trees to form some bad blood with the shinobis. I also think Jura would dig deep into the history of shinobis just to figure out the flaws and faults of their fragile system, and somehow he would pass down this knowledge and observations to Kawaki, which might be the key to making him the destroyer of the ninja world. I think the writers are creating a clear contrast between the way of Naruto and the way of Shikamaru. The strategies of the 8th Hokage seem like a doom for the shinobi world, even though they looked promising at first. Naruto's approach to different conflicts has demonstrated that true power lies in forgiveness and the emotional courage to choose love over hate. There were many times in the story when he had the chance to seek vengeance, but he decided to stay true to himself by taking the route of forgiveness and compassion to find a way out of the situation. The biggest example being the bond that he developed over time with Kurama. The nine-tailed beast was responsible for wreaking rampage in the past and even the death of his own parents, but rather than harboring hatred for this creature, Naruto chose to understand and forgive him, ultimately forging a profound bond of friendship. The capacity of the seventh to emotionally connect with even a being of pure malice reflected his deep compassion and loving spirit, but the other Hokages, especially the current one, doesn't seem to possess the same benevolent energy. The idea of using brain and strategy to get rid of the Shinjus would result in a major backfire for the Shinobi world. It would only reflect how it was Naruto, whose way of doing things had kept the ninja world going for so many years, and was only during his absence when the Shinobi world lost its light. The flashforward shows us the nightmare of Naruto, the village that he tried to protect with his life, turning to ashes. But it won't be wrong to say that he could have potentially avoided the things from reaching this point. Think of a hypothetical scenario where Naruto would have never been sealed and was given the chance to talk it out with the Shinjus. I'm sure he could have even convinced them to lend the Shinobis a hand in dealing with the Otsutsuki clan. But unfortunately for the present timeline, the village is under Shikamaru's command, who has been informed about the possibility of a dystopian future, which is why he came up with a plan to outsmart the Shinjus, not realizing that their boss is unraveling countless textbooks in pursuit of all the available knowledge about humanity's wisdom and history. So far, it's now clear that the Shinobis are drifting away from the way of Naruto, which would inevitably lead to their biggest downfall. And this may be a stretch, but it could be that the reason for Momoshiki to remain silent was no different. He knew that Boruto and the people he's trying to protect will get blood on their hands sooner or later and would eventually pay for it too. So maybe that's why he has chosen the path of silence over malice and is patiently waiting for the right time where he would steal the show. But let's not lose our hope on the Shinobi system and discuss that one aspect which would emerge like a ray of hope in the middle of this tricky situation. Even though Naruto is gone from the plot, his teachings are still there, and judging by the circumstances, his ideal followers would never do something like backstabbing no matter what. I'm talking about Konohamaru and Sarada and how they could sympathize with these creatures just like Naruto, proving that there is still a way out through love rather than hate. They could notice the innocence in their personality and how they do not seek to harm anyone but are completely dependent on either their instincts or the orders of their boss Jura. Both Sarada and Konohamaru are trapped in some tricky situations, which makes it very less likely for them to catch the Shinjus off guard, with Sarada still wondering about the Sumire incident where she got the blame of undermining her feelings. I think this reflection would hit back on her as she would communicate with Ryu and connect with him on an emotional level. She would never want to repeat the same mistakes of neglecting someone's feelings. In case of Sumire, it was her love for Boruto that she didn't think about when she ran to hug him in front of her. But in case of Ryu, his harmless nature and blind trust could make Sarada forget the plan of backstabbing him, simply because she would be paralyzed by the heavy emotional load. So the only other people who could actually attack Ryu behind his back are the Sand Children and Mitsuki. And looking at how things are being set up, I won't be surprised if Araya loses his life in the next few chapters. Sarada and Mitsuki are protected by the plot. I was betting on Konohamaru to die, but unless Jura himself comes to the rescue of his fellow Shinjus, I don't think Konohamaru will get killed. Not to mention Jura can actually appear to flop the plan of Shikamaru for one solid reason. And to be fair, this reason also raises the possibility for Konohamaru's death as well. If you think about it, Kashin Koji is holding back Boruto from interrupting Konohamaru and the others in their plan of destroying Matsuri and Ryu. But looking at how people like Sarada and Mitsuki hold a chance to kill them once they lower their guard, don't you think it would be more efficient for Boruto to just appear and finish the Shinjus out of nowhere while Konohamaru and the others have their attention? Even though it would have made it much more efficient to get rid of the human-based Shinjus, why didn't Koji think of this possibility? Well, the answer is simple. Jura is about to show up to the Shinjus once they turn into soul thorns, and while retrieving these items, he could potentially kill the people responsible for killing his comrades. This explains why Koji is not letting Boruto to be a part of this fight. There's a good amount of chance for Jura to appear, which means Boruto will lose his life if he comes to their rescue, and this enhances the possibility for Konohamaru to die if he ends up moving away from the ideals of Naruto. The plan of Shikamaru would enrage the Shinju, and the chances for someone to die in the upcoming chapters is way too high. So even though the blame would land on Shikamaru's head for coming up with heartless strategies to deal with the Shinjus, there is actually some merit to his plans if you think about it, with his past traumas being the fuel to his decisions. Shikamaru's master was killed by Hidan, who was the personification of evil, someone who had done murders and evil deeds all his life. The Shinjus don't seem to be as malevolent as Hidan, but they are certainly more dangerous. The fact that they completely rely on their instincts makes them a huge liability, since you never know when their impulse would make them take the life of a loved one. To sum up the thought process of Shikamaru, he believes the domesticated tiger is still a product of the wild, and that is why from his point of view, the mercy merciless approach to take down these beings is completely justified. Now that the story has reached a point where it has become difficult to deal with these creatures, not because of their power level, but due to the type of missions which involve betrayal and backstabbing, similar to the old way of Shinobi, I can recall a theory of mine from early 2024 where I discussed a dilemma that the characters would have soon faced in the Shinju saga. What if the Shinjus get too involved with the main characters to the point where they would become as important as their human counterparts? Like, imagine Masuri falling so much for Konohamaru that it becomes difficult for him to land a blow on her, or the innocence of Ryu paralyzing Sarada from attacking him because in her eyes he is just a harmless creature who hasn't done anything wrong. The romantic feelings of Masuri that were revealed in the last chapter also hints at Hidari sharing a parental bond with Sarada, and it could be that he actually held back during their first fight. Nevertheless, the good guys will soon experience a difficult dilemma if the Shinjus turn out to be unexpectedly good people. Hypothetically, what if a new Otsutsuki threat emerges and the Shinjus, against all expectations, defend the planet by defeating the invaders? Even then, the Shinobi world still needs to rescue the humans trapped within the trees, a task that would require ending the very beings who had just saved them. The emotional weight of such a betrayal would push the heroes into an absolute moral dilemma. But right now, the Shinjus haven't done any huge favor to the Shinobis, so the remorse of killing them won't be that big compared to when they would help the Shinobis against some bigger threat. And I feel like the stakes will definitely increase for the Shinobis as the plot is now taking a shift by painting an evil picture of the heroes fueled by the circumstances. Well, I personally like the angle of Kashin Koji in the story, since he seems to be playing a mega chess game with all the characters acting as his chess pieces. The way he warned Boruto makes it more interesting, as even though the odds might be against their favor, the prodigy would very likely go to save his friends when needed, even if that means facing Jura, who's seeking the chance to kill him. You can find out more about my thoughts on Kashin Koji in this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you are new here, and I will see you next time.